What's up, guys? Welcome back to Engine25 Reviews. It's a show where we chat movies, TV shows, and generally nerd out about stuff we think is cool. If you like that, hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, and tell your friends. Doing my best to get episodes out at least bi-weekly, usually on Sundays. So if you ring that bell, you'll never miss one. We're available on video on YouTube as an audio podcast on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, and Radio Public. That's a mouthful. Just search Engine25 Reviews, no space in Engine25, or hit one of the links in the show notes down below. My name's Brandon. I'm your host. You can find me at Engine25 on all the things. Sometimes it's an underscore after that. Today we're talking Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. But before we get there, I want to introduce our guests. Today we have a regular guest on the show, Catherine Burrell. If you've probably seen her before if you watch some of our other episodes. She's a communication PhD student at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, specializing in film studies. She holds a BA in theater and film studies from Georgia Southern University, where I went, and a master's in communication and documentary studies from Northern Arizona. So she's real smart. Her interests include genre theory, film history, adaptation, French cinema, which is an interesting one, and popular culture, and media effects. And also my buddy Wesley, he's a fellow AV tech kind of guy. He's from the Viewist Productions YouTube channel. And he's been doing the pretty cool series over there about E.T. called the E.T. Enthusiast that everyone should check out. How you doing today, Wesley?
I'm doing good. Now the pressure's on. You didn't tell me Catherine's bio before I came on here. And I'm over here like, oh, I have a YouTube channel.
That's more than I have.
Well, I warned you that she's smart. Tell us about your E.T. thing.
I'm doing a series of interviews, trying to do a series of interviews. I've been doing about one a month, roughly.
Yeah. And there are 4 or 5 of them out now, right?
Yeah. Since it's the 40th anniversary of E.T. this year, I've been reaching out to different people who either worked on the movie or have some sort of something to do with it. So I've talked to like Robert McNaughton, who starred as Michael, the older brother in E.T., but then I've also talked to like Paul Rust, who has nothing to do with E.T., but he's a big fan, and we talked about E.T. references in other movies, and that was a lot of fun. So it's been really cool, and I have a few others in the works, but to be determined when those will be out.
That's
no worries.
Really cool.
Yeah, the videos are really good. You should check them out. How are you doing, Katie? You've been making some changes lately. You've been talking about this PhD thing for a while, and now it's real.
And now it's real. Oh my gosh. The program started in September. It's when we start school up here up north. And my brain has just been on overdrive. Like,
it's good for you.
Difference. It's really good for me. Yeah. But I've just been like, hey guys, I know about film. What else do you guys know? And they're like, misinformation, disinformation, media policy, technology and media. And I'm like, oh, that's great.
All cool relate. Stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool stuff, but
okay? So be real. It's you start in September. It's been 2 months. When's the last time you slept?
Oh my God, I don't know. So I've been really avoiding trying to outrun the burnout recently, because not only did I start my PhD program this semester, I had a bachelorette party to travel to, a wedding down south to travel to, and then
I tried to get you on the last 3 episodes, and you're always at a wedding. Like, it's just
no
27 dresses up in here.
I literally, and I was so tired, and I've been chasing the burnout. And last night, I don't know what came over me, but I was in bed at like 6:30, and I'm usually up until about midnight. And so I was like, what the hell is wrong with me? I really hope I'm not getting sick. I feel fine. But I slept really good last night. I will say that.
I'm glad for you. It's
me too.
And I've been the new God of War game came out. God of War Ragnarok came out last week, and the first one is like my favorite game of all time. And it is not easy to stay up until 1 o'clock playing video games and then getting up to go to work like it used to be. Maybe it's because I'm getting old or something. Who knows? But no, yeah, that's been a challenge. And work has been busy too. So sometimes I work until 9 or 10 o'clock, and then I play video games for 3 hours, and it's long. Like it's. I've been playing for 20 hours and I haven't finished it yet. Like
wow.
It's really good, but it's a lot. Anywho, The real reason we're here today is to talk about Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Like I said, like I said earlier, here I am. I try to write a runner show, and I'm reading from it and then skipping over things. Wakanda Forever released on November 11th, 2022. It had a production budget of somewhere around $250 million. They don't release that kind of info anymore, really. And as of November 18th, which was 2 days ago, last time I looked, it's made $407 million globally. So it's not too bad for itself. $400 million in a week.
Yeah, I think I read today though that it had like a 65% drop off or something this week, like something crazy like that. I don't know why.
We're going to be seeing that a lot because it's going to be on Disney Plus before Christmas. This is for 45-day turnaround thing that they're doing now. For the first segment, we always stay at Yeah, for the first, well, I was going to go back. What are we watching? That's okay. For the first segment, we always stay on spoiler. We'll talk about spoilers later. So anyone who's listening, if you haven't seen the movie, you're good. If you haven't seen the movie, you should do yourself a favor. But let's talk general kind of stuff first. Wesley, how'd you feel walking out of Wakanda Forever?
This is the most excited I've been about a Marvel movie in a while, and I hate to be. Well, I don't want to say I hate to be excited about a Marvel movie, but it's gotten to the point where you're like, this movie was incredible, that you're like, I don't want to sound like a fanboy, like all I watch is this stuff, but it feels like it was a cut above the rest, like especially recently, because Phase 4 has been kind of all over the board a little bit. Like some were clearly better than others. I think the quality was a little rougher than it's been in previous phases here and there, but and there's also just been like so many movies and shows that like starting to feel the fatigue like a little bit every now and then. But
I'll give you that. I will because Katie's going to start some shit here, but before I I'm going to throw in that I would rather, Marvel they've done their 20 something movie Infinity Saga. It's as a general rule very good. There are a couple of movies that don't quite work, I would say, but out of 20 movies, if you have 3 that are kind of bad, your record's pretty solid. At this point, they can do whatever they want, and they're still going to make money on it. And I would rather them take a chance, do something a little bit different, even if it doesn't always work, than keep giving us, like the formulaic superhero movie. Because, Marvel does not ignore the tropes. And in fact, they've made there's so many movies now in just the MCU that they've made a lot of new tropes that other people are following, so their movies absolutely follow a formula. And I would rather them break the formula, even if they don't get it right every time, than keep making the same thing. Like I love Shang-Chi. Shang-Chi it's a love letter to Kung Fu movies, right? Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, it's super different. And it's a love letter to old like Hong Kong cinema. And then the end is a kaiju battle, and it's completely different than most of the stuff in the MCU so far. I would also say that I don't really think Multiverse of Madness works all that well, but I adore that they gave the keys to Sam Raimi, took the reins off, and make a Sam Raimi horror movie that fits in this universe. And that's pretty awesome. And again, it's really messy, and there are things about it that don't quite work, but like it's like Drag Me to Hell with superheroes in it. Like, yeah. And when it works really well. When it does, unfortunately, I would say it works less off, or it doesn't work more often than it works. But it was a great time in the movie theater, and then I walked out and I was like, I don't know if I'll watch that one again. But and then Love and Thunder is I don't think it's good, but I've watched it 5 times. All right, Katie. I know
I was shocked when you told me you watched Love and Thunder 5 times.
No, yeah, and it's not because it's good. But I will. I'll hand the reins to Katie, and I know there's some stuff she likes, and I know there's some stuff that she didn't like about Wakanda Forever. So yeah, let's keep it pretty general. But how are we feeling right now, Katie?
I appreciated the fact that I went on the opening weekend. So I think I went on the 12th, that Saturday, or that Sunday, the 13th.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of like forced myself out of my burnout and procrastination. And I was like, all right, like just go. Because I was very low energy. But I was like, you need to go see it on the opening weekend because it's going to be a totally different ball game if you don't. So I made a point to go see it opening weekend. And I'm glad I did because
you're with the people who really want to be there.
Yeah. I am. And then in addition to that, it was really funny because when this is not a spoiler for the movie at all, but at one point they end up in Cambridge, Massachusetts, which is like an hour and a half away from me. And so
anything you recognize, or did you look at it and say, that's not Cambridge, Massachusetts?
I think it actually was, though.
No, great. That's great. I'm asking because I have no idea. I'm curious. Yeah.
I haven't been there, but it was just really funny because when that came up on the screen in the theater, my entire theater was like, yeah, Massachusetts.
Excellent. There's
so that was good.
That's a funny thing because Wesley and I are in Atlanta, and all kinds of stuff is filmed in Atlanta, even things that, in fact, most often things that don't take place in Atlanta. So then you'll be like watching Ozark, and then they'll walk up to a building that's on like Peachtree Street, and I'm like, I know where that is, and it's not in Chicago. Yeah. Or like Baby Driver, where it's all like driving scenes, but it's like they cut together things that are not adjacent. But people who aren't...
Baby Driver is at least the only one that's actually like takes place in Atlanta. Usually they're like, this is New York, and it's clearly not.
And it's
like when they did the last Hunger Games movie in Atlanta, and if you're from Georgia at all, like not even Atlanta, if you watch that, you're just like, oh.
Yeah. A lot of Marvel fight scenes are just like in an Atlanta parking lot.
Especially, what was it? She-Hulk. I was just like, yes, Atlanta.
And that's in LA, but no, it's all just filmed on a street level in Atlanta.
Yeah.
A small part of this movie is filmed in Atlanta too. It was mostly up north, but a little bit, and it was like mostly green screen stuff that they filmed down here at like Pinewood or whatever Pinewood's called these days. So and we can get a little bit more detailed about it later on if we want in the spoiler talk, but this movie was very different than what it was originally conceived because unfortunately Chadwick Boseman, the actor who played Black Panther, passed away a little over 2 years ago, right as they were getting ready to film the movie that would become Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. How do we feel that, it's a love letter to him and the people who loved him. So how do we feel that the movie handled the loss of Chadwick Boseman? Because it's a big thing. Really the inciting moment of the whole thing is his passing. So, all right. And when I say that, it doesn't explicitly say in the trailer, but you can kind of gather, is the character of T'Challa passes away very early in the movie, which kind of sets the other bits of the movie in motion. What do we? Katie, you go first.
In terms of the themes of the film, it, like you said, it's very obvious that Chadwick Boseman's death was a catalyst for many plot points in this film. And it's evident. You get lots of nice tributes to him and his tenure as the Black Panther, and it's very poignant. But as a theme of grief in the film, which is there, it's so undercut by everything else that's happening that I thought that WandaVision did a much better job at exploring that theme of grief
Okay.
than this movie did. Yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Could you expound?
Well, I would just say that the entire plot of WandaVision is surrounded around Wanda working through her grief. And for this film, which focuses mostly on Shuri, that's how she opens this film is, coming into grief and dealing with grief. But then those are all kind of shoved to the side when they have political things that start to happen in this movie. And while she is still kind of coming to terms with that, she's more coming to terms with the world around her than the things that are actually that she's feeling. And that's where the differences are between Wakanda Forever and WandaVision, because that theme of grief is explored so intrapersonally through the character, whereas Shuri has to deal with grief throughout this film instead of like actually process it.
I'd agree with that, and I'll say that like neither of these characters, and I get Wanda versus Shuri, I don't know that either one of them deals with it very well. Wanda deals with it by trying to fill the void of the thing that was lost, and then Shuri deals with it kind of the opposite end of the spectrum and almost trying to ignore it and just do her own thing, or she really tries to minimize the spirituality in the culture of Wakanda. Mm-hmm. She's a scientist, and she doesn't believe in most of that. And some of this movie, like she pushes all that down for as long as she can, and then she kind of learns to embrace it. But what about you, Wesley? The movie does not forget that we've lost Chadwick Boseman, and it's the opening sequence is like just a big reminder. Hey, this is where we are, and this is why. This is what happened. We can't do anything about it, so this is where we're going. But yeah, how are you feeling about this?
I liked that a lot. I feel like that's kind of the only way they could have done this movie, because I know there's like a big push online to recast T'Challa, and like recast T'Challa was trending on Twitter like the night the movie came out. And I'm like, I mean, I understand why you guys would want that, because we didn't get that much time with Black Panther. I mean, there's one Black Panther movie with the Black Panther with T'Challa, but it's like,
right, and he comes up briefly in like Captain America: Civil War, and then Infinity War, etc. But
he's like such a huge presence. Like the first movie was huge, and Chadwick Boseman is just like a huge presence. He was a huge star, and people loved him. Like when Black Panther came out, the first one, it was almost like he was Black Panther, like at award shows or just like in the streets, videos. You're like, everybody's obsessed with this guy. And it's like, you could have recast him, but it would have been just so weird. And these same people who wanted to recast him would probably be like talking shit to this poor guy on social media and like tweeting terrible things at him. And it's like, it'd be such a thankless job. So I feel like this was the best way to do it, because they were able to pay tribute to Chadwick Boseman, and they didn't have to just like act opposite somebody totally new and pretend that he was him. Like the whole thing would have been very
and they didn't do
awkward.
Any deep fake facial replacement nonsense.
Yeah, thank God.
I agree. Like, I don't think that they could have dealt with it better than they did, considering it's probably one of the, in my opinion, one of the highlights of the whole movie. It's very respectful, and I don't think that T'Challa cannot be recast, but just the fact that the movie was due to come out so soon after, like their other option would have been, if they didn't do this and lose, and have the character die immeditely, then they would have had to move this movie further out. If we waited 5 years, then I think it would have been okay. But then there's some gaps they have to fill in. Like, okay, where is Wakanda when all these other things are happening? And I think that's why, like, there is ground that is covered in this movie that would have had to be covered either way. with T'Challa or without him.
Yeah.
So it's, the movie came out when essentially at the same time that they intended. Like, it was like so many other things. I think it was delayed a year because of the pandemic and because of Chadwick. But, so is everything else. So, it's still in the ballpark within a year and a half of what the plan was anyway. So,
but they got two really...
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Yeah, please.
They got two really beautiful things out of those decisions, though. One being they were able to kind of market themselves as like the grief processing movie of the pandemic, because Chadwick Boseman's death was such a like kick me while I'm down kind of moment.
Yes,
in the thick of the pandemic. And so they got to use that, and not only use it as like, I don't think they really marketed it that way, but there was touches of it. But then they get to use it as like the cathartic experience coming out of that, right? Yeah. And number two, what they get is a film that is so feminist without even trying to be.
Yeah.
Because it just came about like, well, we have all of these characters. What are we going to do without Chadwick Boseman?
I'm not going to disagree with you. I'm going to say there are a lot of characters in this movie.
There are.
And I want to discuss if some of them, man, woman, or otherwise, needed to be there, but we'll get to that. So, yeah.
I just want to touch on one thing that I had forgot to put in there, which was that I think we need to be very careful when talking about this film, just in terms of not...
What did I say?
Getting caught up on the fact that Chadwick Boseman isn't there. It needs to be able to work on its own.
It absolutely does.
To have things to talk about without just saying it's a great tribute to Chadwick Boseman. Like, yes, that's a given. We get it. I mean, I just say that because that's what I've heard from my students. We were asking in class the other day and saying, well, what have you been watching? And then somebody said Wakanda Forever, and they asked about it, and they just went, oh yeah, well, like Chadwick Boseman, like, wow, they really honored him. And I'm like, okay, and?
There's more to it than that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they did a good job of like, it's kind of bookended by the grief process and like talking about his passing and whatnot. But in between, it's like, okay, we can't dwell on it too much. Like, let's keep this.
The world is still moving.
And get into the story.
The world is still turning despite this terrible thing that happened to us. There are other things happening that we are involved with here. So moving on. Okay. Are either of you, you're not like comic book readers. So were you familiar with Namor before this movie at all?
I knew who he was. I know he has some kind of thing with Invisible Woman at some point. That's about it. I knew he's got the wings. I've seen him. I've seen him around in different things.
Yeah. He's actually frequently in the Illuminati, which is that organization that came up in Multiverse of Madness. But he's really what he is. He's the king of Atlantis, basically. Yeah. He's the Aquaman of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And he's like a hero character, but he's also just always been a dick. And he's like, I mean, and not to say that there haven't been good stories with him in it, but like it definitely could have, looked a little similar to what they're doing with Aquaman in the DC movies, because they don't have a lot of like, I don't want to say style, but there's not a lot of culture on display in the version of Atlantis that's in the DC films that are coming out lately. And I say that as a guy who generally enjoyed the Aquaman movie, and I love Jason Momoa, but this Namor is honestly better than any depiction of him I've ever seen in comic books or cartoons. And it's because, they took what the risk of at risk of making Atlantis another boring civilization, or like making like an ancient Greek kind of thing. You know, it's Atlantis, I think, is a Greek or Roman story about a city, you know, the city that was swallowed by the sea, blah, blah, blah. But no, yeah, Namor here is very different, and it's like the first thing I have to mention is the visual style, and they it's not Atlantis, they call it Talokan, and it's a Mesoamerican people that were affected by vibranium and went off into the sea, blah, blah, blah. We can talk about that in more detail later. But, you know, I can't gush enough about the production design in the first Black Panther film, and I have the same things to say about this one, particularly when we're talking about Talokan and Namor's people, because, you know, this again, it's a Mesoamerican angle, and they use vibranium, but the you know, just the designs are like Aztec or Mayan, and it's, you know, they're it's an excellent display piece for Latino actors, which is wonderful. Tenoch Huerta's never been in an English movie before, you know, and here he is, the main antagonist in a major MCU movie. No, it's wonderful, and he's intimidating, and he's charming, and he's you know, and the costume is incredible. I know I'm just over here gushing. How do you guys feel about Namor? Like I said, this version of Namor is better than any I've ever seen. Like, he's never been that interesting before. Excellent. I love it.
There he is.
Audio listeners, Wesley's holding up a Namor action figure.
That answers your question. I was sold like already, but I've been burned before buying action figures and merchandise before a movie comes out, and then I'm like, what am I gonna do with all these Suicide Squad toys? But
yeah.
This one I was not burned by, and I was like, I knew it. I knew I had a good feeling about him, because every time he was on screen, I was like, oh my god, this guy is just like,
he's magnetic.
Charisma.
No, yeah.
I was like squeezing my fiance's hand like every time he was on screen. I was like, oh my,
yeah, you know, and he just swims into Wakanda. You know, like no big deal. He's like, what?
And the cool thing is, like you said, like the costume is like pretty much like the comics. He's got the wings on his ankles, and he's got the short shorts.
It is, but yeah,
completely
it's
serious.
Yeah, they somehow made it, ankle wings, like, not stupid. And as you're right. Like, he wears the tiny shorts, but he's got this like necklace on that looks like Mesoamerican architecture. And he, you know, they got the piercings, and then the one scene he's got the big headdress on. But no, just the visual design and the performance of Namor is just absolutely stunning. And
he feels like a serious threat, and
yes,
he doesn't feel like a joke ever. Like, which is a good thing. Like, I love that he actually feels threatening, but he's also just like, he's a villain in this movie, but he also, much like Killmonger, you're kind of like, oh, I mean, I could kind of see where he's coming from.
I don't agree with his
sometimes.
methods, but I understand why he's doing the things that he does.
Right, exactly. Like maybe Wakanda probably wishes that they weren't having to deal with like the United States and like other countries. So maybe Namor is onto something. And then when the backstory there, like, I never, like, if I didn't know better from the comics, like, I would think like that's probably his backstory, right? But like, completely original. And when they explained like how he got his name, I gasped, because I was like, the fact that you were able to like come up with that with what you were given, like, they didn't change his name or anything, but they changed that, and it was like, that feels like this was always his backstory. It feels like it was meant to be. Like, it was so perfect.
Yeah. And I really appreciated the way that they integrated the costume and set design already established in the first film with not only Talokan, but also Namor's costume. And I just loved the moment when we really first meet him. And, you know, there's this whole conversation going on about vibranium. And then I forget who it was, but one character says, like, we can take him, like, we have vibranium. And then Shuri says,
Mom,
so
he's covered in
it. He's covered in it.
Like, everything he's wearing is made of vibranium. Yep.
Yeah, and it's because it doesn't completely look like the vibranium that we're used to seeing in the context of Wakanda, and it's because they're two different civilizations
Yeah, but it's
that have,
if
yeah,
anybody who watches Pawn Stars, or if you've been to a pawn shop, the shopkeeper, you hand him a gold bracelet, he knows immediately if it's gold or not. You know what I mean? So it's like
yeah.
you and me can't tell that it's vibranium, but she works with it every day, and she's like, no,
Yeah.
he's covered in it.
And she's like, no, we cannot. He is literally covered in this precious resource that even we don't cover ourselves in, like and traditional or day-to-day Wakanda the costuming. I mean, like, it's there, but they're not dripping in it. He's literally dripping in vibranium. So besides the Black Panther, but that's a different thing. So I just really appreciated like how they really balanced these two different stories coming in with the established Academy Award winning art direction and set design and costuming and stuff like that.
Are they going to win again?
Oh yes, of course they will.
I'm trying to think what else has come out this year. Maybe Elvis is like the only real competition, and I don't think that it would win against this.
No, and I think it's just because it's way too they put so much detail into it, and it's not just about the effectiveness on screen, but I think they would also take into account the effectiveness off screen. And if you can walk away from a film like palpably feeling an absence of that world, it's probably through the set design or the art direction. And I feel like that's what happens when you leave this film. And I think that's what a lot of people felt when they left the first Black Panther film. I mean, it was a total, just like wave, like a cultural wave of appreciation for what they did in that movie. And I can see the same thing happening in this one.
Absolutely. Excuse me. There are, a lot of people are going to be exposed to these kind of visuals for the first time, and I've never seen it portrayed like this. I think Mesoamerican artwork is very cool, but, I've, not even in major movies is it often portrayed in a respectful way. Like I would say, if you've never seen Apocalypto, depending on how you feel about Mel Gibson, that might be one to check out. And it's, and historically, I can't tell you if the violence and stuff, and it's only because I don't know if the violence portrayed in a movie like Apocalypto is historically accurate, but they show the culture with a lot of respect, and it's visible, and they use the real ancient languages. But that's probably the only moment that I can think of in a big movie where Mesoamerican culture is on display. So like is under the spotlight, like so in such a way as it is in Wakanda Forever.
I would specify live action. In
sure. That, okay. Yeah. Fair.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know I've got some other notes here about some performances and things, but let's go ahead and move into, because I want to talk about that stuff in more detail. So let's
yes.
Any final notes before we move into spoilers?
I just say that I liked the film, but I didn't walk away from the film feeling really energized or.
I don't know if anything. Energized is the word. I wasn't hyped at the end of this movie.
Yeah.
But I don't know that that's a problem. I don't know the word. I don't know that you and I mean the same thing when I say that. Like it's really gloom. So it doesn't have like a big uplifting ending. It is a movie about grief and moving on, and we're only just beginning to move on by the end of it, and it's long. There's a lot crammed into it, and there's so much about this movie that I love. I will say that it's kind of messy. There's some stuff in here that doesn't need to be taking screen time away from what really matters.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I will I don't know that
I
it
just
has a
felt like the
downer.
story was kind of messy.
Yeah, like, and I don't think it has a downer ending, but it definitely, like, it's really melancholy. That's the word I'm trying to find. Like, the wrap up of the movie is really melancholy and bittersweet. And I would even say that I have some issues with the third act that I could point issues that I could lay on a number of superhero movies, but. In general,
We'll
I
need
really
to get into spoilers for that.
yeah. In general, I really like this movie, and it's an emotional ride for sure. And I would say it's one of the better recent movies. For like the Multiverse of Madness and Love and Thunder are both kind of rough. So this was a nice change of pace.
Yeah, this just felt like an epic. Like it felt.
Yeah, it
like
really does.
All of the Marvel movies are on a big scale, but you walk away from some thinking like, I don't know, and I don't know if that's because like of the story of this one. I don't know if it's the cinematography is just better than like some of these more recent ones. Like Love and Thunder looks like somebody said Love and Thunder looks like a PlayStation commercial.
Love and Thunder looks like a
that,
1980s metal video. And that's
Yeah.
what, and that's probably why I enjoy it more so than it's actually a good movie. But
yeah, but it didn't feel like a sprawling epic like this does. This
That's
felt
absolutely true.
like really big in scope, and I know they want all of them to feel like big event movies, but this one actually, I feel like I walked out thinking like, okay, this was something.
Okay.
Katie disagrees.
I mean, I don't disagree, but I don't agree completely either, and that's fine.
Fair.
I kind of left with the feeling like, okay, we ticked that box. I don't know if I ever really want to watch it again because
That's how I felt after Black Widow. I was like, okay, that's a movie. That's a movie that exists.
Black Widow might as well be a movie that doesn't exist.
Yeah,
which is
one
so
does.
sad.
yeah.
that one,
After,
I may be suffering because it was still like COVID-y at the time, and I watched it on Disney Plus at home, and I think it's
We did
the
too.
only Marvel movie I haven't seen in a theater. But I don't know that would have helped it much. I was like,
I think it is. It's probably that and Shang-Chi are the only MCU movies I haven't seen in the theater.
yeah, Black Widow. It just felt like, why are we doing this? It felt like we were backtracking, and then it wasn't even very good. So I was like, what was
That's
the
fair.
point?
I would say that
that's-
I probably like Shang-Chi better than I liked Wakanda Forever.
I might agree with
Yeah.
that. Okay. Oh yeah. You're probably right. Moving on. So we listeners, viewers, at this point forward, we're going to talk about anything we want, full spoilers. So if you haven't seen the movie, you should go watch the movie, and then you should come back and listen to the rest of the show.
And tell us if you think we're wrong.
Okay. So before there's some more moments, folks in the cast I want to retouch on. But before we do that, I got a question for you guys.
Okay.
Watching this movie, I teared up a little bit 3 times. When do you think that happened?
Oh my God.
The beginning with T'Challa's funeral.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree.
Queen Ramonda dying.
Yeah.
Or the one and two the one and true queen Angela Bassett. Yep.
Yeah.
And
then the mid credit scene with T'Challa's son.
Yes, nailed
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I agree. Because those were the same 3 times that I got teary.
Excellent. See, it did get to you.
It did, but I felt like okay.
The things that work about this movie really work. It's too overstuffed, and there are things in it that don't work, in my opinion. But no,
The number one thing that I could have lived without in this film was freaking Valentina. What's her name?
Oh, I knew you were gonna say that. That's
Right?
I was just like, why? Why?
You know, and
I do not need you here.
I love Julia Louis-Dreyfus. I love Martin Freeman. You know, I'm a staunch defender of the Hobbit movies, or at least 1.5 of them. But you're absolutely right. You know, and the reason he's in this movie is because he was in the first one, and there's some relevant stuff. There's some stuff in this movie that will be relevant later for like the Thunderbolts, and they didn't really have a place to put it. So then they put because he's in the first one, they put it in here, and it was just taking screen time away for the things that really mattered to this story.
Yeah, I feel like he has a good rapport with like Okoye and Shuri, and then like I feel like
I agree with that.
Kind of fun together. They have fun banter, and I thought
like
Julia
the
Louis-Dreyfus was fun. Yeah, they can kind of like shit on him, and he's still kind of like a nice, easygoing guy. But I liked Julia Louis-Dreyfus. I didn't know she was going to be in this movie.
My issue isn't.
I like her too.
Yeah, it's not with Julia Louis-Dreyfus or the character like Valentina. It's the fact that they have no purpose to this story. Like there's no resolution within this movie. There's no resolution for the things that they're doing. So it doesn't really.
Did she end up screwing them over somehow? I can't remember. Or were they really just like talking in their kitchen and it had no effect on
literally had no effect
else?
On the rest of the film? None. And then in that at
I guess
the very end,
she found the thing that the bracelet, the beads. She found that and
we needed to arrest Martin Freeman, and for some reason they used to be married, which is different in the comic than the comic books. For some, like
that's kind of fun. Yeah, I'm excited. I mean,
it's fine, but it's I like their dynamics together.
Too many.
It
opens way too many messy doors, and I'm just like, why? Just separate them. Like they don't have to be together. This opens up way too many plot holes.
Just knowing what's coming. Because I'm a dork and I pay attention to these things, and just the fact that we've lost William Hurt also, like the Thunderbolts movie is coming, and Harrison Ford is apparently playing Thunderbolt Ross, but they are going to I really think they're going to minimize Thunderbolt Ross in that movie. We're going to get one scene with Harrison Ford wearing the mustache, and Thunderbolt Ross is going to die, and they're going to name a new superhero team after Thunderbolt Ross. And we're never going to get the Red Hulk. That bums me out because Red Hulk is awesome. But
you're probably right about that. But
no, yeah.
I was going to say it's not exactly like they're recasting William Hurt with the most youthful guy.
No, yeah, he's 80 years old. So they're planting the seeds. With Martin Freeman and Julia Louis-Dreyfus to be in charge of the Thunderbolts, so that we don't have Thunderbolt Ross, or because we won't have Thunderbolt Ross.
I want to be so much more excited about that, but then they revealed who the team was, and I was like, okay, so it's everybody from Black Widow plus Bucky Barnes
from your favorite movie.
Yeah, I'm like, we already saw them together. Why, the whole idea of a team up movie should be oh wow, these guys together, and it's okay, well, we saw them together before, and I guess
what?
I mean, there are other choices. We could bring back Betty, and then she could be Red She-Hulk. Who freaking knows? But they're.
Let's give us something other than here's a team of guys and girls who all use guns and swords, and that's it.
Yeah,
they all do the same thing. They serve the same function. Why are they on a team together?
Everyone was really excited because they were convinced that we were going to get. Anyway, we're rambling about things that may never happen.
Yeah.
But it's where basically they're planting the seeds now because we're going to have a Thunderbolts movie that isn't going to have William Hurt in it. So they are. Basically, I really think they're going to kill off Harrison Ford as Thunderbolt Ross, and then Valentina is going to be in charge of the Thunderbolts. And she was in Falcon Winter Soldier, and they may have already had that plan. Maybe William. I forget when William Hurt passed, but it seems like it's stepping stones toward that, and it had to take up space somewhere. And unfortunately, it takes up space in a movie that's already 2.5 hours long.
Yeah. Yeah, she feels like they're Amanda Waller in this universe.
Yeah. And the thing is that I saw this question on another channel, and I'd love to know what you guys think.
Please.
But they were saying wouldn't some of these people, a lot of these people, especially what's his name, John Walker, wouldn't they know that she's the fucking director of the FBI or the CIA?
She's the
whatever it is?
new director. They pointed out that she's been recently promoted. That's a thing that happened in within this movie. But you know,
even then, to get that kind of promotion, you have to be like high up in that institution or in that world. Like, you
are not wrong. And I'm not trying. I'm not saying it makes sense. You're right. That's the and Valentina de blah 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 de Fontaine. Her name has too many syllables in it. She toes the line. She's been an ally. She's been a villain. Like, one of her nicknames is Madam Hydra. Like, she could be a Hydra agent, and is now the head of the CIA. You know, now that the MCU can't seem to decide if S.H.I.E.L.D. exists or not at this point. But
they can't even decide if Hydra exists or not. Because I'm just like, we've done this. We've been there
before.
They put Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. They put Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. out of its misery, because I can't imagine those poor writers having to be like, okay, what the hell is happening in this universe now? We got to write this into it. Because they were hanging on by a thread, starting a show, and then their second season, the MCU is like, oh, S.H.I.E.L.D. is Hydra, no longer exists.
First season. The first season wasn't even over, and they were like, all right, S.H.I.E.L.D. exploded. Sorry.
Oh my God. Yeah, I'm sure they're happy they don't have to figure out what to do with all of this now.
If Steve Rogers ever jumps back into this shit, he's gonna be like, "But I what are we doing here?" So I don't know. But back to where we got here from this.
Yeah.
Those are just the kinds of questions that for folks like us or fans who know what's could be happening in the future, readers of the comic books, putting in those little details like that are they expand out of the world of the movie that we are currently in. And then it's just distracting for the rest of it. So not only are you taking up screen time in a movie that's already long and a plot that already has so much going on in it, with so many people already in it, you're adding in more people, more plot, more stakes, which have nothing to do with the issue at hand. So, those are just distracting. If you want to set that stuff up, do it in a post-credits scene like you did in Phases 1 and 2. I don't understand what is so hard about that.
I agree. I'm sorry, Wesley. It's Age of Ultron syndrome. There are a lot of good things in Age of Ultron, and there are people that will disagree with me on that. But there's also a lot of fluff because they're setting up things that are coming later. There's way too many. There's a whole scene where they're teasing Thanos and all the Avengers are dead on the ground, and then they're talking about Thor Ragnarok before Thor Ragnarok was a thing, and it's the same thing here. Is we are I can say that Marvel's patient, and they are okay with dropping stones in the puddle, and then we're going to get the big wave later on. But it's the movie's already long. Go ahead, Wesley.
At least there wasn't a 10-minute chunk where Okoye or somebody has to go get in a bath water or something and see visions of another movie that's coming out in 5 years or whatever. Whatever the Thor thing was in Age of Ultron, and then Ragnarok ended up being a totally different movie than that anyway.
It's true. No, yeah. So they're
set up for nothing.
Things change even between now and when those things eventually happen. So who knows? The point is, I would agree that there wasn't a lot of place for the Allegra Valentina de Fontaine, Julia Louis-Dreyfus character. We could have had the one scene where they go to Martin Freeman and find him, and then they go on the one mission with Martin Freeman, and then we move on. It's hey, bro, thanks. Thanks for being our...
two good colonizer jokes in there. And then,
just move on. Yep.
What did you guys think about...
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead, because I was about to kind of change
the subject.
Okay.
Onto another character.
I just I was thinking about, these things that we've talked about with how many people there are and the plots and everything going on with the film, and I was wondering, why does this feel so different from the first Black Panther film, which is, I mean, I honestly think it's such a masterpiece and it holds up so well, and it does deserve all of the attention that it got, like being nominated at the Academy Awards and all of that. And I think it's because, one, the film works together so well in all of its elements, but two, the story itself, while so progressive, is so classic because it's the hero's journey, and you have all of these classic archetypes at play in the one film. And it's a very clear act structure, and you can follow it, and you have the plot structure as well playing in with the acts, and it's just crafted so well as a story with classic archetypes that are used so cleverly and so gratifyingly in one film. And I don't feel like that with this, and I don't feel like that with a lot of other Marvel films coming out. But in the early days, or in the first film of all of these characters, like I feel like they can do that. So I don't know. I just felt like thematically, and with the archetypes of storytellings and narratives, and building up a plot structure with, in 3 acts, like it just works so well in the first film. And it's just so clunky and like not gratifying in Wakanda Forever. And I feel like that's the main difference, and why I left feeling just kind of like meh about it.
I think I'm not going to disagree. I think there's so much thematic material here that is so important. And I don't know that they nail all of it, but it deals with, we've hammered the nail about grief extensively now. It also deals with colonizers, and or like the white superpower, the forcing forcing smaller nations into conflict for their own benefit, and there's a lot here. It might be too much. Shuri's whole journey kind of deals with science versus spirituality, and there's it's just a lot, and I think it's too much, and if the movie is long, it could have been just as long, but we could have spent some more time on the things that matter than some of the things that we do. I definitely want to talk about Shuri. Spoiler alert, by the end of the movie, Shuri is not the queen, but she is the new Black Panther. The beginning of the movie, Shuri's in a play, the heart-shaped herb, the plant that gives T'Challa the Black Panther powers, the effects of it have worn off, and he has a disease. They're unclear if it's a virus or if he has cancer, like Chadwick Boseman did, etc. But she's losing the last moments with her brother because she's focusing on the science and trying to recreate this herb, because if she can give him the Black Panther powers again, it'll save his life. And she doesn't get there in time. And then through a lot of the movie, and even in the first movie, she downplays the spirituality of the Wakandan culture, and she doesn't believe that the spiritual plane exists. And then by the end of the movie, after she's lost her brother and her mother and so many of her friends and family because of this conflict with Talakan, she takes the heart-shaped herb herself. She is able to create a new one from using materials that she was given by Namor, using chemicals in a bracelet from Namor. She was able to recreate the heart-shaped herb, and she becomes the Black Panther, and she goes to the spiritual plane and sees a person that I did not expect to see there. But, it's that Shuri's whole journey here, it's grief is a big part of it, but it's also finding a balance between the scientific and the logic and the spiritual nature of her people and her culture. I thought that was very interesting. takes a long
But it
time. Takes a long time to get
wasn't
there,
the main-
and it takes a big, I don't know that it was as well developed as it could have been. I think she reaches a point and turns a corner more so than we see like a change over the course of 3 hours. But what were you going to say, Katie?
I was just gonna say that. I mean, you're not wrong, but they just didn't highlight it in a way.
Yeah, no, that's maybe that's what I'm trying to say.
Apparent. Yeah, and so like that, I think that's what the first movie did. That was so much better. They said this is the problem and this is the conflict. Like this is the external conflict and this is the internal conflict, and we get touches of that in this film, but nothing is so explicitly stated, like you just did so well. That's so lost in the midst of everything else going on.
It
would
may be a little too
story
subtle.
if it was about that.
Yeah.
It'd be a beautiful story if this whole thing was embedded in Shuri's reconciliation between science and religion, right? Because that's a very, hot debate, hot topic.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
Express
it's a big deal in today's society for sure. And it's like, again, I don't know that it's handled the best way. Like it's probably a little bit too subtle, and it almost seems like, she goes to the spiritual plane and sees Killmonger there. She doesn't see her brother. She doesn't see her father. She sees another person that had a lot of rage and vengeance in their heart. And that's the moment that she decides, okay, I don't want to be this person. But it's like one almost inciting moment, and she kind of turns a corner more so than she has an arc that's highlighted through the movie, like probably the way that it should have been.
It feels like she kind of gets a little more angry and like violent, like more violent after she sees Killmonger.
Yeah, he has an effect on her for sure. And then she has to find the midpoint. But it's just
she makes like that one comment near the beginning of the movie about like wanting to burn everything down. But then like throughout the movie, it feels like she is like, yeah, Namor is a bad guy. Like we can talk through this. Like everything's fine. We can do this peacefully. And yeah, I think it is interesting where like as soon as she sees Killmonger after that, it's like, oh, I'm ready to like go in on people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like they're trying to have their cake and eat it too, because she needs to have that arc, but also you don't want your main character to be a dick throughout the entire movie. It's like she has to be likable for the majority of it. So I don't know. I guess it's the best that they could have done given the circumstances, because you don't want her to be angry and I don't want to say maniacal. She was in the right place, I guess. I don't know. She was being angry, but like, yeah. We
don't want her to be a tragic hero.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Letitia Wright is given quite a lot of work to do in this movie, and I think she gives a good performance. She is a younger actress. She's not as seasoned a performer as, say, Chadwick Boseman. So I don't want to lay it all on the actress. There's definitely some issues with the writing here too, but I would say there are better performances in the movie than the one we get from Letitia Wright.
Yeah, I will say after this one though, I felt like I was a little more sold on her, because I wasn't necessarily at first, and afterwards I think I was like, okay, I can see her carrying another one of these.
And people kind of expected her to be Black Panther. I heard on another podcast, like maybe the way they move forward is each movie has a different character as the Black Panther. At the end of the movie, it's kind of implied that M'Baku is going to become the king of Wakanda, and traditionally it's the king of Wakanda that becomes the Black Panther. But the Shuri,
she doesn't ever set out to be Black Panther.
No, yeah, she never wanted it. And it's kind of maybe opening too many cans here. Marvel's already let out of the bag that we're going towards Secret Wars, and assuming that they're using the recent version of Secret Wars because it is better and makes a lot more sense with where the MCU is right now. Shuri was the Black Panther during that. It was a big crossover event, similar to Infinity Gauntlet or what have you. And Shuri is the Black Panther in that story. I don't specifically recall why. I don't remember if T'Challa was dead or if he was, the characters it's comic books, characters get lost in other dimensions, or there's any number of reasons why. But, maybe I got a feeling they were moving towards Shuri becoming the Black Panther for Secret Wars, whether or not we were going to be able, whether or not we would stick around with T'Challa. Maybe T'Challa was going to, something was going to happen to him in this movie before we lost Chadwick. At this point, we'll probably never know that. But there's
they had to make Letitia Wright Black Panther because she refused to get vaccinated. It was the only way they could get a mask on her.
Rude.
Wow.
Calling
I haven't
him
laughed
out,
like
dude.
that in a long time.
Yeah. So and that's, there were some whispers about, maybe we shouldn't be making this person our role model, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to mess with all that, but no, yeah, I guess my point is it's Letitia Wright probably would have fallen into these shoes at some point, no matter what. Unfortunately, this movie had to get there sooner than they intended, whether or not that was the end goal or whatever. She's given big shoes to fill, and I think she does a good job, not a great job. They
kind of set it up now for the recast T'Challa folks, with them revealing the son at the end also being named T'Challa. The opportunities are endless now. He's very young right now, so I don't know what they would do, but that's
what I'm talking about. How old does he have to be before he can become the king? But he's also only 6 or something. So we would have to have another big time jump like the snap, or we would, he comes in from another dimension and he looks like is a different person, like the Loki show introduced the idea of variants, and we have Spider-Man No Way Home where 3 people from different universes are Spider-Man, but they all look completely different. And that's considering we're apparently in the middle of a multiverse saga that hasn't messed with the multiverse very much. There are any number of ways that they could bring back T'Challa. Maybe I don't know what's going to happen in the Kang dynasty. Maybe we go into the quantum realm and just a bunch of time passes and we come back out and
oh my God,
T'Challa's an adult.
Movie. Oh,
that movie be Jordan is T'Challa now.
So how about our one true queen, Angela Bassett?
She rules, man.
She's so
I
good.
feel like she's in the first Black Panther and she's great in that too, but I feel like she's not given that much to do per
That's
se.
fair. Yep.
And in this one, she's acting her ass off, and it's wild. And
she doesn't take shit from anybody.
Yeah, she's going in this one, and I know people have talked about the supporting actress conversations for Oscars. I feel I don't know what the competition is like this year, but I feel like it's a possibility. If there's not a lot of competition this year, they could go that way. She was awesome.
I definitely think she'll be in the running. I would love to see it happen. I don't know. As far as women, I don't know who else would be the pick. She'd probably be in the supporting category. What do you think?
We're going to have to wait and see with that because we are just now approaching the time of year when all of those
award season is really just starting.
It's a good start. She's a great start to this conversation. So, if it's only going to get better from here, wow.
We got a lot to look forward to.
Yeah, exactly. I think that she was absolutely amazing. She was so good in the first one, but I really agree with Wesley that she has so much more to do in this film. And it's just ironic that she's taken out of the game 3/4 of the way through, or even halfway through. So I feel like that won't work in her favor.
Right.
When we get to whatever the voting body is going to look at. And I think that her really like stunning moment is at the beginning of the movie. So I don't know how those voting bodies are going to approach that. But that one scene, I think that two scenes. She has two scenes that are really good. One at the beginning and one in the middle.
Yeah, the one
Yeah.
where she's firing Okoye, and then
Yes.
the one where she's presenting to the United Nations. I guess it's the United Nations. Yeah. She's great.
But in between those two moments, like she does wonderful work, right? Like she's great, but I don't know if like that level is sustained, that like emotionality level is sustained throughout her time in the movie. So I don't know. I don't know how the voting bodies are going to approach that. But she's got two wickedly good scenes under her belt. So I think she'll definitely be a contender, and I'll be rooting for her. So.
Okay, where are we? Okay. I'm gonna take the lead on this. I liked Riri Williams in this movie, played by Dominique Thorne. It's another character that I don't think really needed to be here. It was taking up space that could have been used for other things. But I enjoyed the performance. I think her Iron Man scenes were kind of lame, but I liked the character. I'm interested to see more from the character. They could have waited to give us more from the character outside of Wakanda Forever.
Yeah, she was the one I was going to bring up when we were talking about Val, if it felt like she was tacked on or not. But it feels like Riri Williams was like important to the beginning of the movie. Like she definitely had a place there and was important, and it was she was part of the plot with the whole
even if they still
that can find vibranium.
Because there's an Ironheart series coming out, but even if they still name dropped her, it would be like some of the Easter eggs dropped in the early Marvel movie. Like if you watch Iron Man, or like particularly Iron Man 2, if you want to force yourself to sit through that again, there are a lot of little bits about things that are coming. But it's just like little name drops, or it's like Wakanda shows up on a map in Iron Man 2, and that was 8 years before, or 6 years before Black Panther showed up in Civil War. Like so little seeds like that. Oh yeah, this machine was invented by this kid at MIT named Riri Williams, blah, blah, blah. And you could name drop it in dialogue, and then we could find out more about her later. But again, it was just another one of many things that are taking up space in this movie.
Or give her the space to be introduced in the way that they did in the beginning of the film. They go to Cambridge and whatever. And then like leave her in Cambridge. Like, we're good.
Or maybe even drop her off, like, after, like, I know she gets kidnapped by Namor and all that, but maybe once they're back in Wakanda, they're like, all right, see you later, because then she's in the third act, the big final battle, but she's doesn't really have anything to do other than, like,
and the big final battle's really lame, unfortunately.
I kind of dig the final battle a little bit. I don't know. I don't think everybody needs an Iron Man suit. Like, I don't want Okoye and all
I agree with that. And like,
stupid suits, but
I guess we chat about it now. The ship that they're on is just like this big pyramid thing, and it's just like very uninteresting compared to other Wakanda technology. Like the little ships they fly around on are awesome. Why doesn't it look like one of those? Like, it's a submarine. It's not an aircraft, but it's just like it didn't even seem like it was designed by the same kind of culture, because even in the technology, they build these amazing machines, but they feel like they fit in with the African flair, and with this watercraft whatever thing, it just wasn't that interesting. It's like maybe a little too practical in its design, and not, I don't know, it isn't. And then like
got me.
I hold on. Like, I love the way that the Taliban soldiers they climb up the sides of the boats and stuff, and then the Black Panther and these other people in suits like swinging across the sides of the ship, knocking them off. Like, it should have been way cooler than it was. I'm sorry, Katie, go ahead.
No, don't apologize. I was just I totally get what you're saying with that, but the thing that really bothered me with the final battle scene was just that weird uses of cinema time, like throughout
Yes.
the whole
Yes,
sequence.
agreed.
And it was. Go ahead, Wesley. Like, what did you think?
I think what it is, right, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like they filmed, like we're going back and forth between the stuff that's in the ocean and then Shuri versus Namor on land. And the
Shuri
versus
starts on the
Namor-
boat, and then Namor comes up, and then the whole point is they're trying to dry him out because he's weaker, so they throw him in the desert, basically. Go ahead.
Yeah, but that whole the whole scene on the desert that's filmed with the IMAX cameras, and the other stuff is not. Am I right about that?
I
'Cause that's what it
I
looks
noticed it. The aspect ratio kept changing.
It looks so
But,
weird. Like they both
Wesley,
look
people who aren't
good on
you and
their
me
own,
don't
but-
notice that.
Well, they look good on their own, but then just like going back and forth between, I was like, this looks strange. Like,
Yeah.
either film them all with the IMAX cameras or like separate these scenes, because going back and forth like that was just very
And-
odd.
Ideally, in those big final scenes, you don't want to switch between them. That's your showstopper.
Yeah.
So
It's the okay. I have complained before on this show, particularly in DC movies, but a little bit in Marvel movies, where the third act is CGI vomit, and there's very little of it is actually shot on camera, and that's part of the problem here. Is we're shooting, they're cutting between a scene that's in 235, mostly CGI. And a scene that is shot in IMAX with like ultra wide lenses. So everything looks, the desert looks vast and huge, and Namor looks like a giant in a 4x3 giant IMAX screen, and it's because you're cutting between them. So it's there, but that's not to say that you can use you can still use IMAX scopes for your or virtual IMAX scopes for your CGI scenes. Like it's like the. I think the scenes on the beach with Namor and Black Panther looked better, and that was the only time in the movie where I thought the choreography was really working. Otherwise, when people are fist fighting in this movie, it's like when you compare it to the first Black Panther, it's just not nearly as good.
I disagree. I like the Dora Milaje at the beginning were really good, and then like anything with Okoye before she gets
Fighting with the spears is usually dope.
Yeah, before she gets the stupid suit, like she's awesome. and Lupita's little scene where she's rescuing them, I thought that was pretty good.
the thing with that whole sequence, though, for me was that like they were stretching out the battle on the ship with the Dora Milaje and the army way too much. I mean, there were times when like they should have been over the side of that craft in the water, but it took them forever, and they just keep slowly pushing them in. And I was like, oh my God, you are not syncing this up right. Like the momentum here is like stopped, but you were trying to get a little bit more out of it. And I'm like, you either need to re-edit this or
There is
I don't know.
there is a way to shoot a big big scale battle scene, and a way to cut together a big scale battle scene, and interestingly, some of the Marvel movies follow it very well. Some of them do not. And that is, if you're going to cut to a character, whether it's a hero, a villain, a main character, an extra, if you're going to cut to a character during a big action scene like this, where there are tens, hundreds, thousands of characters involved, that character, if you're going to occupy that screen time, they need to accomplish something, or something needs to happen to them. And I don't think that is always the case here. Well, or like, if you look back at the first Avengers movie, the third act, it's easy to follow, and every time you go to Captain America either gets punched in the face or he accomplishes something. The motions of the battle are always moving forward, even when we go to these moments with individual people. Something that the Lord of the Rings movies do very well, and those movies involve way more people that are involved in this scene. The Battle of Helm's Deep has 10,000 orcs in it, but every time we cut to one of our heroes, we see them do something. And I don't know that is the case here, and I don't. maybe it's an editing issue. Maybe it's I don't. Ryan Coogler, he directs characters in dialogue scenes very, very well. And he's also like, have you seen Creed? Like he's at least staged interesting fight choreography in very cool ways in the past. But it's like that if the third act of this movie has a lot of issues. I think some of them are pacing related and some of them are like kind of focus related. Where like, I think we should have probably spent more time or more of the focus should have been on Letitia Wright, on Shuri as Black Panther and Namor, and less of it should have been with this big boat thing that wasn't that cool anyway. But the way it's cut together is kind of 50-50. Now, I do want to talk about the Talokan and the way they fight, and the way that they're an aquatic culture. They live underwater. They attack like people, like you might think people who live underwater. They're. I hate to just hate on the Aquaman movie, but those people ignore the goofy technology. They're just people that are like, they walk up out of the beach and they're standing there and they shoot you with a gun or hit you with a weapon. But the Talokan, like I loved this scene early in the movie where they, Lake Bell is like this technician on a ship and they have this machine that can detect vibranium, which is kind of the MacGuffin that gets the once the grief stuff is out of the way at the start, that's the MacGuffin that gets the rest of the movie rolling. And then they've discovered vibranium at the bottom of the ocean, and that gets the attention of Talokan because ultimately it's going to lead them to their it's going to lead the surface to their civilization, and they want to avoid that, obviously. So they attack the ship, and they're like looking out over the water, and people like somebody tells a story about a siren or a mermaid or something, and you can just see this big wide shot of a dark ocean and the moon, and then like in the little ripples where the moon is reflecting water, you see a little dot. It's somebody's head, and you see another one, and you see another one, and then the next scene they're like secretly climbing up the sides of the ship in a very cool way, and then it's just like, and Wesley and I were at work the other day. We were talking about their weapons. Like they have grenades that are like pressurized water bombs. Like, and it's dude, I'm just gushing over it. But like everything about the Talokan culture in this movie, I love it so much. It's so cool.
They look awesome. Like I love their little masks with a little bit of water in them, and I love those little grenades that are like have a lake's worth of water in them.
Yeah, and like
I love.
Go ahead.
The little siren song where they're like luring guys to jump off the side of the boat. Like they were just awesome.
And it's interesting that they turn blue when they're out of the water, and set and they there's, if you think about like you ever gone, I've never gone scuba diving, but I've done like snorkeling and stuff. If you're underwater, there's no gravity. Right? Or there is gravity, but there are creatures around that can ignore it. Like little crabs and stuff crawl around on the underside of rocks and things. So that's what the civilization of Talokan exists in a three-dimensional space because gravity isn't as big a problem for them. And it just makes so much sense. And they have this, they live in the dark, but they have this sun that's made like that rises up out of the pyramid, and it's made of vibranium. And it's, I don't know. I don't know that I'm going anywhere other than to say what I've already said, which is just that it's very cool. And it's obvious that they've thought about it quite a bit.
Yeah, they thought about a lot of things that like I wouldn't have thought about. Like a lot more thought put into like what would be cool about an underwater culture than I think more than what Aquaman did. Like there's just so much going on there, and it feels rich. Like it feels kind of like how Wakanda felt in the first film.
The only thing that I would have wanted more of was to like know how they're technically and innovatively using the vibranium besides like an artificial sun. Like you don't get to see the process behind that other than like this
And
mystical
that's a
looking
good point.
sun.
And maybe they are not. Maybe they are. Maybe they aren't as technologically advanced as Wakanda. But that's a good point. You know, they obviously they use it to make armor and weapons. They use it to make watercraft, but they don't. That's a good point. They're you know Wakanda
like
has
it was...
vibranium in everything, and
Yeah.
they don't really show off the Talokan technology, and maybe it's because it's not as advanced as Wakanda. Maybe it's because they were hiding it from us. But that's a good point.
Maybe. And I think that in some ways maybe they just didn't show how like in Wakanda they've embedded the vibranium into their culture. It identifies their culture. And I don't know if vibranium identifies the Talokan culture in the same way that it does the Wakandan culture. So that might be a difference in how it's embedded in the Talokan day-to-day life, like it is in Wakanda. I don't know, but because they didn't show us, and
Yeah, and I
think that's
thought,
fine
like,
to leave those questions there.
yeah, and we can certainly explore this. Like the Talokan and Namor could have had their own movie.
Yeah.
And you know, it didn't need to be here. And I'm not upset that it appeared in Black Panther. I'm just you know, there's enough questions left that we could still explore it, and it could be very interesting. It doesn't seem like
a testament to the art direction as well, because they've done such a good job at making such a palpable environment in Talokan that we're like that we can even ask these questions, you know. So
I'd like to come see your home city. Well, you can't because you won't be able to see, and it's dark, and you'll get crushed unless you wear a suit. Here, I got one for you. It was a lot more charming and a lot funnier when Tino Huerta said it. But
it was great.
No, yeah, this is like just drop in a joke here just to lighten the mood. It doesn't need to be all funny all the time like in Love and Thunder.
Oh my God, sorry, that came from my soul.
That because I've been very lenient on that sort of thing. Like I know a lot of people have that complaint about Ragnarok, but I felt like it was a pretty good balance for the most part, and I think it's my favorite Thor movie. But then Love and Thunder was like, please, just for the love of God, take anything seriously, please. There's things happening, like make me care, show me that you care, so that I will also care. But this Wakanda Forever feels like the first one in a while that was like actually took things seriously, and they would make little like crowd pleasing jokes, but they weren't at the expense of what was happening in the movie.
Right.
And they were actually good. They weren't Aluma Wuddy.
Howdy Hoopy Woody. What about there's been some complaints on the interwebs. A lot of people are saying this movie's too dark. What do we think about that?
You mean like in
I'm sorry. It's
lack
too
of light, or
yes,
like...
it's not. It's so particularly night scenes are people are saying that they're not well lit, and it's a complaint that's been leveled against a lot of TV these days. It's cinematography wise, there are a lot of scenes that take place in the dark, and you can't see much. And I'm like, did you guys watch the same movie as me? Like, you need to go watch it in like Dolby or something. I did not have that problem.
Yeah,
I did not have that problem.
I didn't have an issue with that because I know that's been kind of an ongoing thing on film Twitter, is people that are like, please just like light movies better.
Rest in peace, Twitter.
They'll show a bunch of like comparison shots of like movies throughout the years, throughout the decades, and it definitely does seem like movies now are all like a little darker, but also you could cherry pick from any
HDR
movie
is a thing. And also making movies has never been more expensive than it is. So a lot of people are shooting day for night, which is something that no one should ever do. And I have been on night shoots in the winter, and it's cold and it sucks, and you're out in the bush when it's freezing for from sundown to sunup, and I have been there, and it's hard. But if it's a night scene, you should shoot it at night, particularly if it's outside. And that's just my 2 cents on that. If it's indoors, it's a lot easier to get away with day for night, but you can also light with indoor lighting at that point. So,
but ironically, the pièce de resistance of this conversation is the Game of Thrones Battle of Winterfell, which was shot at night, and you still can't see it. So it's like, where are we? Like,
I mean,
like,
you're not wrong, and that's another. There are other problems going on there, but what? Anything else you guys want to mention? And then I want to talk about how we'd compare this to some other movies.
I think the Michael B. Jordan inclusion in this film was done very thematically well. Like,
I agree, and I saw a rumor that he was in the movie. Wasn't sure what capacity, but I was pretty sure we would see him in some form. Go ahead, Katie.
Me too. I felt like I was not going to be surprised if he was in this movie, but still the way that they revealed it, I was like, I was like, it's him. And so I felt like the way that they did it was just so embedded in something that could have felt so wrong, but it just was done so well that it was so right. You know, like it really could have gone either way. It could have been fan service, or it could have been what it is, which is just really satisfying.
And it was in a really pivotal moment for Shuri. You know, it happens very shortly after her mother has passed, which is after all of these other terrible things, you know, and she doesn't know how to feel, and he just he finds the rage and lights it up. Go ahead, Wesley.
No, I thought it was great because they could have easily done something similar to that had no bearing on anything, but
yeah,
this actually did, and I'm glad they did it because he was really like kind of the highlight of the first Black Panther, and you're like, oh well, it stinks that he can't be in this one, and then just when you think there's no way, they reveal him there, and it's great. It's only one scene, but he's as awesome as you remember.
Right,
it's powerful.
You know, you kind of go into. She doesn't believe that the spiritual plane is a thing, you know, and she takes the heart-shaped herb, and she doesn't. We don't know what's going to happen. It's like, okay, I knew or was reasonably confident that she wasn't going to see T'Challa because they made such a big deal about not using Chadwick Boseman, other than there are a couple of flashback shots from other movies, but you know, there's nothing here that's new with T'Challa. So I didn't expect this to be the thing that was going to do it. I thought it would be her mom.
Yeah, I fully thought it would be her mom. So this was like a really good subversion that I did not see coming.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, I was totally here for it, and I'm down with Michael B. Jordan any day of the week. I'm very excited for Creed 3, which is his directorial debut. And Wesley needs to watch the Rocky movies. Katie, have you seen the Rocky movies?
Rocky or Creed?
Me either.
Okay.
Sorry.
I'm not
yeah. We'll talk about that later on.
I want to know what Michael B. Jordan's approach was coming back into this movie. And I really hope that some really good interviewer gets it out of him someday. Because in my headcanon, I like to imagine that he wanted to contribute thematically, like he has, and like brings some kind of closure to the character of Killmonger, but also like a chance to like get his own closure around the death of Chadwick Boseman and like contribute to his legacy through the sequel, which everybody kind of knew was going to be that. So I don't know if I'm romanticizing that whole situation. I very well could be, but it's they've made it so clear that like as a cast and crew on the first movie that they were like very much affected by what that loss would be. And so I imagine that Michael B. Jordan is 100% a part of that conversation.
Any final thoughts, Wesley? Michael B. Jordan, the movie in general?
No, I love me some Michael B. Jordan, so any excuse to get him in there.
I mean, I think both of you will really like the Creed movies. You will get more from them if you sit through some of the Rocky movies.
The new one looks awesome. It does. When I saw that trailer, I was like, oh,
Katie, don't make that face. Some of them are good.
I just...
some of them are not. Some of them are.
I just want to watch the one with the robot.
I don't know if I want to sit through that much like
Boxing.
masculinity. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm just like, oh, that might be. I'm bringing in a lot of baggage into that, but still, I'm just
Yeah,
like,
and
ugh.
you're gonna wanna you're gonna wanna slap Rocky for Adrian so many times, or
I'm just
or
like,
her
why do I
brother.
want to watch that? I'm
Yeah,
like, ugh.
but the Creed movies are so good, and I do think you can enjoy them just knowing that okay, Rocky is the former world champion, and he's old
Yeah.
now, but everybody loves him, and there's more to it than that, but I think you can enjoy the Creed movies knowing at least that much.
I know what happens and why it's relevant to have a Creed movie.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Anyway, I think Wesley and I really liked Wakanda Forever. I definitely think it has some issues. It's a bumpy road. Like the first movie is really tight and kind of like streamlined and has its end goal in sight very clearly. This one I think suffers for a lot of reasons. There's some stuff they're trying to set up too much and not focusing as much on what's happening in the now. And they also had to deal with the impossible situation of Chadwick Boseman, and they're it's pretty good considering all the difficulties that they had to do with writing this movie. But it could, maybe it needed another year in the oven or something, but in general, it's really good. Unless you ask Katie, I will. I would
I
like.
just agreed with you.
Katie made a point of she'll probably be the odd one out here in the pre-show, and we've been poking fun since then. So, how do we think Black Panther: Wakanda Forever stands up against some other recent or not so recent Marvel movies? I think Shang-Chi is probably my favorite of the new phase. I don't think it's quite the emotional roller coaster that this movie is, but I do like it's really smart, and it again introduces a new culture to the MCU, and it's a love letter to old kung fu movies, and I just thought it was a great time. And the cast in Shang-Chi is fantastic. Simu Liu is great. I'm first in line anytime Aquafina's in anything. I do think Wakanda Forever gets a leg up because there have been some not so good ones recently. Have we mentioned Eternals? There's another one that's just like a big stumble. That's probably it's hard to pick. It's hard to say between that and Black Panther, or Black Widow, about which one I think is the worst of the bunch.
Widow, I think Black Widow is worse.
Yeah.
Eternals when I was watching and I was like, oh, this is all right. This is decent. And then if you quiz me on it right now, I would fail immediately. Like it just, I don't know. That's a movie that does not exist.
There's definitely some cool stuff in Eternals. I would say it handles its third act and its superpowered characters fighting each other better than the end of Wakanda Forever does. It's probably the only thing in it that I would say is has a leg up over this movie.
It's just interesting that Eternals feels like the first one recently that was pushing the narrative of like, oh, we let the director do what she wanted to do. Like she got to do her movie, and it didn't feel like that to me. I don't know, but I could feel it more with like Multiverse of Madness and this Wakanda Forever a little bit as well.
There were more
Eternals
moments
feel so generic.
There were more moments that I cheered for in Multiverse of Madness than probably any other recent Marvel movie. But there's also, I would say that there's more stumbles, or there's a lot of stumbles in it that don't really work. So, well, how are you feel? What do you feel, Katie? The recent Marvel movies have been a mixed bag, to say the least.
Yeah, I brought up a infographic of Phase 4 to pique my interest, remind me. And I'm kind of astounded at how much of Phase 4 has been dominated by Disney Plus shows. And I don't think it helps the performance of narratives in the blockbuster films. We've had hits and misses with the films just as we have with the shows. So, WandaVision I loved. I loved Loki. I did not like Eternals. It just felt, I mean, and it's so sad because there was so much potential, but it was just kind of like a modge podge of so much stuff. So much stuff. Just like Thor Love and Thunder was just like crazily all over the place and had no clear, you know, journey or story to really drive it. Black Widow, I liked, but it's not my favorite. I just feel like they could have done so much more with her than just like give her like a traditional like let me save my sisters kind of thing.
Somehow I'm realizing we haven't mentioned Spider-Man. Katie, did you like Spider-Man No Way Home? Wesley and I reviewed it last year. I know he loves it.
I loved it. Yes, I really did. And I think it's because they knew what they had to work with and they didn't detract from that story. They said, when we cut away from this main story, it's going to drive the A plot, you know?
Yeah.
And I felt like in so many of these. Sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead. Sorry. I was
just going to say that the B plot.
Sorry. Freaking Discord.
The B plot just doesn't. The B plot in a lot of these things just does not drive the A plot in a way that is good for one, the format of and you know, whether it's an episodic or a film, and it just doesn't drive the overall story. I think they're thinking too much in the future. They're trying to set up too much stuff. They're trying to think ahead.
I agree, and we've been there before.
Yeah. But like the beauty of phases 1 and 2 leading into 3 is that they weren't doing that so much, and they let the stories have their own weight and their own impact. So
I mean they were, there are some movies it's more obvious than others, but like Thanos appears at the end of the first Avengers movie. You know, like they knew where they were going as far back as 2012.
But they didn't let that bog down.
That's true.
The film.
Other than Age of Ultron.
It wasn't. Yeah, Age of Ultron really does it. And that seems to be like the big complaint that everybody has. But yeah, and like Far From Home, I feel like even with all of the, if you want to call it fan service, but like all of the old returning characters, it all still felt like.
You mean No Way Home or Far From Home?
No Way Home.
It's more confusing when the titles all sound the same.
Yeah. Well, it all felt like it was about the Tom Holland Peter Parker.
Yeah.
Like even the other Peter Parker showing up, it was all in service of like his journey, which was
absolutely
good.
It's a really, it's like I think it could be trimmed down a little bit probably, but like the path from A to B is very clear, and there's a story that they're telling about our Tom Holland's Peter Parker.
Yeah, like it was fan service, but it was also in service of the story, and I appreciated that.
Whereas Thor: Love and Thunder is all assumed fan service, just totally assumed.
Yeah,
you
were talking about B plot, like Thor: Love and Thunder. It promised us this interesting story with Natalie Portman, with Jane Foster, and I think that is the thing that disappointed me the most. Is there's so much more interesting. I just smacked the microphone. Interesting material that they could have given us there.
Yeah, they do nothing with that.
Yeah, like especially the parallels. And in fact, I was talking with Wesley about it in the booth earlier this year. Like the parallels between Jane Foster and when she doesn't have the hammer, she's terminally ill, and then Gore the God Butcher is this like sickly or like this weak alien race, and when he doesn't have the necro sword, he's really frail and fragile. Like, and there's just some really interesting thematic material there that they could have explored, and they don't, like, at all.
Yeah.
And
so
not to say that
to me.
I think the parentage like theme of it, like for a first viewing, it seems like it kind of just appears. It just bookends everything, but like I think it's if you give the movie a chance, I think it fills in some of the the family kind of aspects of it. It's you know, it's sewn in there, it's sewn through there pretty okay. But it's, again, there's a lot they could have done with Love and Thunder that they didn't, in favor of making it an 80s rock video. But again, I've watched the movie 5 times.
I just don't understand how that happened, because Taika Waititi is a amazing filmmaker, and not just filmmaker, writer.
Have you seen Jojo Rabbit?
Amazing. Yes, it's amazing.
It's so good.
And so,
have you seen
I'm so
Boy?
confused.
Haven't seen Boy.
No.
I've seen The Hunt for the Wilder People.
That's great too.
Yeah.
But Boy is like amazing, and not only just because it has like a million ET references throughout, but it's also just a really good movie. Yeah,
And
he's
that's why
awesome.
I'm so
I don't know what
confused with Thor:
happened.
Love and Thunder. I'm just like, is this another case where Marvel gave the reins to an indie filmmaker and it just didn't work? But Taika Waititi cannot use that excuse, because Ragnarok worked so well overall.
This is one of those where I can't tell if he was not given enough freedom or given too much freedom.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's what it is, where he's like, "Oh, jokes." And I'm like, "No, not jokes."
I heard from a podcast that I would generally trust. They're like, apparently they arbitrarily wanted the movie to be under 2 hours, and like some of that stuff came from Disney.
Why now?
Yeah, who knows? Like, but if you look, Multiverse of Madness and Love and Thunder are both under 2 hours, and they're the first Marvel movies in many years that have been under 2 hours. So it's, you know, there were apparently a lot of fingers in the pie, more so than some would have liked, but. You know, also,
but a good
like,
filmmaker should be able to do a good movie in 2 hours.
I mean, I don't disagree with that. So that's fair.
I want 90-minute Marvel movies, and you can have a nice little 3-hour one as a treat when it's like Avengers or whatever.
Yeah. I want to see them get a really good director, balance out that dichotomy between director and producer in the studio. Do it in 90 minutes and then see how it does, because I would almost guarantee that it would do really, really, really well.
Yeah, I'd love to see them do like more exciting things. I feel like DC has kind of gotten to do that a little bit, but then now they're all obsessed with getting back into that shared universe thing. But it's like, I'd love like a Joker or a whatever. Just give me like a cool take on a character. And Marvel doesn't. I mean, it seems like they're trying to get into that a little more. Like, it was cool to see the like Werewolf by Night thing. That was cool. And I'd love to see them do more
I'm
weird
so
stuff.
excited for the holiday special.
Yeah,
Me
that'll
too.
be fun.
And if they don't make one Star Wars joke, I'm going to be extremely disappointed.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Let's kidnap Kevin
just let
Bacon for
directors
Christmas.
have fun.
Yeah, you know, and I'm like I said before, I'm fine with that. Get an interesting filmmaker, let them do something different. Bring in a new style of film that we have, and put superheroes in it.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
oh my god, they need to do a neo-noir with like somebody new that's just like morally gray.
Isn't there like a gray Hulk like that who has like a little like a fedora and stuff in a pinstripe suit?
Yeah, he's not a detective, but yeah, that's a version of Bruce Banner that has appeared in the comics. Yep.
I don't know if that's the answer, but it's an answer, so I'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see what they do next. This had me thinking like they need to make more Black Panther and Spider-Man movies. Everybody else can do like every now and then just rush these ones in. Like, give me more Black Panther and Spider-Man, and I'll be happy.
Apparently, Tom
like
Holland's
those are the
back.
best ones.
I haven't seen it reported by any official medium, but you know, there's enough people are reporting on the rumor that it might be real. Who knows?
I'm really looking forward to Quantumania, though.
Me
really
too. I want to see what they do with Kang. Kang could be very cool or very lame, but Jonathan Majors was amazing in Loki, and I hope that it could be something very special.
He's amazing in general. Like, did you see The Harder They Fall?
I didn't see that. I've seen The Last Black Man in San Francisco, and I've seen Lovecraft Country, and they're both fantastic.
You need to see The Harder They Fall. He carries that whole movie. And that cast is amazing, right? They've got Idris Elba. They have, who do they have? I think they have Regina King, don't they?
Probably.
I think so.
I know Idris Elba's in it.
Jonathan Majors carries that whole movie. It's amazing.
He's carrying the trailers for every movie I go see now. It's like half of the movie trailers, he's in them.
Yeah, and I just I am so excited to see him apparently play a different Kang in this movie.
Yeah, that'll be cool.
Yeah, I just can't wait. And Paul Rudd just plays. I think he gets the essence of the MCU so well. That mix between playfulness and
he and Evangeline Lilly are just so damn likable.
I know.
You just want to hang out with them.
Unfortunately, this also looks like one of the uglier MCU movies in a while. Like I've seen a lot of people saying it looks like Spy Kids 3D, and
oh no!
Ever since I've seen like the shot comparisons between like Spy Kids 3D and like Shark Boy and Lava Girl and Quantum Mania, I'm like, I don't think y'all are beating these allegations. I'm so sorry. It's very Spy Kidsy.
I mean,
it's a lot of green screen going on, a lot of gobbledygook. But it'll probably be fun. I'm excited for it.
I'm excited for Jonathan Majors to be on screen with Paul Rudd. I feel like they will play off of each other in so many different dynamics that it's just going to be really enticing to watch.
Bad time to have Bill Murray in your movie, though. So that's a little rough.
Yep.
What have you? I'm going to stumble before I say anything. Now that we've been kind of rambling for a few minutes, any recommendations for the listeners? Anything you've seen recently? I usually do what have we been watching at the top, but I forgot, so we're dropping it in here. Or anything you're looking forward to coming up? I know, Katie, you saw Banshees of Inisherin. It's a Martin McDonagh movie, and those are always interesting. I really enjoyed it. It's closer to In Bruges than, say, Three Billboards. But I thought it was really great. And Three Billboards wrecked me, so I wasn't sure like how this was or like what to expect here. But I really liked it. What do you think?
Ironically, I have not laughed so much at a movie, in like a long time.
It's just like it's so morbid and demented and hilarious, but also like weirdly heartwarming. Like, what about you, Wesley?
I loved it.
What have I been watching lately? We just got back from walked in from seeing The Menu and sat down and
I'm going tomorrow.
Was it good? I can't decide if I want to see it.
It's good. I don't know that I'm going to be thinking about it much, but it was fun. Ralph Fiennes is awesome. Ralph Fiennes was really awesome. But,
he's always awesome.
Yeah, so it was definitely fun. It was like cool, but it wasn't. I mean, it was about what I would have expected. If it had been on like streaming, I would have been like, "Oh my gosh, wow! I can't believe they put this on streaming. It's good." But like, it was good.
Speaking of streaming and not streaming, we're going to see Glass Onion later this week, and I am very excited about it.
Oh, nice.
I
need to catch a screening of that.
Yeah. It's only at a few. It's the week of Thanksgiving, and it's only at a few theaters. But if you can find a screening, I think we're going Friday. Nice. And then I would be down to review that on the show next weekend. I'm doing Star Wars Andor. Is
it coming out on Netflix?
It comes out on Netflix like the week after Christmas. But they're doing like a week of screenings. It's in a handful of theaters in most cities for like the week of Thanksgiving. So
there's a lot of stuff coming out. We're about to be in the thick of it. But I'm most excited for I'm so hyped for the Fablemans. I'm like,
me too. And Avatar.
Yeah. Oh my God. The Fablemans and Avatar and the David Harbour Santa Claus movie.
Oh, yes.
Those are my most anticipated.
Katie, do you care about Avatar? Right, you're not that much younger than me. How old were you when the first Avatar came out?
Saw the first Avatar. I saw that in theaters like 2 or 3 times. I loved it.
No, yeah, I saw it twice.
Grown on me so much as maybe it has for other people. Like, I like it. I'll watch it if it comes on TV very happily and it engages me every time. I have my reservations about James Cameron. So I have to actively work to separate the two. But I'm really looking forward to bringing the original cast back in because I love them so much. And I'm really interested in the technology and how it's going to look or feel different from the first one that was so revolutionary. But I'm really looking forward to it. But I really have to rave for 2 seconds about Emily Blunt's new show.
I'm going to give you the single
video. Thank you. Because Emily Blunt is, I think, she's like the one right below Meryl Streep. Like, you've got Meryl Streep, you know, in the 70s, like really owning her own. And then in this generation, I hate saying generation of actors, but in this generation of actors, then you've got Emily Blunt. That is how much I love her. And she's got a new show on Amazon Prime Video called The English, and it's a Western. And I feel like those two are such oxymorons, but it works so well. And Chaske Spencer is her co-star in it, and he does such an amazing job sharing the screen with her and being her scene partner. The story is gripping, and the cinematography is so good. And, you know, they fooled me thinking it was out west, really, when most of it was shot in Spain. So I just, like, Emily Blunt needs an Emmy for this show. I really hope that Chaske Spencer gets nominated as well, because I haven't been so, like, I need to binge watch this in a long time, but I bitched. I binged all 3 episodes, or all 6 episodes, 3 one night and then 3 the next morning, because it was just so good. I mean, it's just pure, like, filmmaking, really. It was really, really good.
Nice. And that's on The English on Amazon Prime?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So I'll certainly look to check that out. I need a new show to watch while I'm on the treadmill. On that note, I think it's as good a place as any to wrap it up. So, keep an eye out for upcoming episodes. Next week, we're recording Star Wars Andor with the regular, for folks who watch the show, they'll know the regular Star Wars crew. It'll be Adam, Chase, and Peter will all be back. And then after that, I'm not sure. You guys, Katie, you want to do Glass Onion? Okay. Yes. Try to catch a screening of Glass Onion. And then I definitely want to do Violent Night. I don't know that I'm going to be able to get Vicky to go with me, but we'll see how that one goes. But as always, thanks for watching, everybody. If you want to hear more, don't forget to like and subscribe. My name's Brandon. I'm Engine25 on all the things. Sometimes with an underscore. You can find us on YouTube, podcast services by searching Engine25 Reviews, no space in Engine25. We'll be back soon with a new review. And until then, go watch a movie. Thanks, guys.